All right, let's dive right into this. Today we're focusing entirely on one of the most dramatic, devastating, and frankly shocking sequences of events in all of ancient Israel's history. We're zeroing in on 1 Samuel chapter 4. This is a chapter filled with the thunder of battle, tragic miscalculations, and heart-stopping news. It's a massive turning point that's going to change the nation forever, and we are going to walk through every single verse together to truly understand what happens here on a literal, step-by-step level.
Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets, Samuel 1, chapter 4, in a clear and simple way, step by step.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, context and the first battle. Second, bringing the Holy Ark. Third, the Ark is captured. Fourth, the death of Eli. Fifth, Ichabod and departed glory. And finally, number 6, key ideas and lessons. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Context and the first battle. Okay, so in verse 1, the text tells us that the word of Samuel came to all Israel. But then our scene immediately shifts. We move away from prophecy and dive straight into the harsh reality of warfare. The Israelites are marching out to fight against their primary, historically brutal adversaries, the Philistines. Now notice the precise geographic setup here. The Israelites set up their military camp at a place called Ebenezer, while their massive adversary, the Philistines, deploy their forces at Aphek. These two locations are essentially the staging grounds. Both sides are digging in, positioning themselves for a major head-to-head confrontation. The tension in the air is absolutely palpable, and eventually, these two armies meet in open, brutal combat.
And you know what? The result of this very first clash is an absolute, unmitigated disaster for Israel. As the battle spreads out across the field, the Israelites are soundly defeated by the Philistine army. Verse 2 gives us this incredibly grim, terrifying statistic. The Philistines kill about 4,000 Israelite soldiers right there on the battlefield. Just imagine the shock rippling through the camp. 4,000 soldiers just gone in a single day. In ancient warfare, this is a massive, severe blow to both the population and to military morale. So the Israelites are sent retreating back to their camp at Ebenezer. They are completely reeling, desperate and frantically searching for answers.
Section 2. Bringing the Holy Ark. Back at the camp at Ebenezer, this battered army desperately needs a new strategy. So in verse 3, the elders of Israel gather together and ask a really important theological question. They ask, why did the Lord bring defeat upon us today before the Philistines? Honestly, it's exactly the right question to ask. They correctly identify that God is in control of their destiny. But their proposed solution? Well, it's completely misguided. Instead of looking inward, instead of fasting or confessing their sins, or even sending a messenger to the prophet Samuel for spiritual guidance, they come up with a purely physical, mechanical solution. They say, let's bring the Ark of the Lord's covenant from Shiloh so that it may go with us and save us from the hand of our enemies.
This decision brilliantly and tragically illustrates their deeply flawed mindset. They literally send men to the city of Shiloh, which, by the way, is roughly a 20-mile trek through the hill country, just to physically fetch the Ark of the Covenant. Keep in mind, this is the holiest object in all of Israel. It's described as the very throne of God sitting between the cherubim. But the elders aren't trying to align their hearts with God's will. They're just trying to drag God's physical artifact right into their camp. They are treating the Holy Ark like it's some sort of magical military guarantee or a good luck charm.
Verses 4 and 5 describe exactly what happens next. The Ark of the Covenant finally rolls into the military camp. And look closely at who is accompanying it. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, who are serving as the priests. When the Ark enters the camp, the Israelites are suddenly filled with this overwhelming, massive, false sense of security. The text tells us they let out a shout with such a great noise that the very earth actually rings and trembles. They are absolutely convinced that with the Ark physically sitting there in their camp, a military victory is now a 100% guarantee.
But wait, across the battlefield, the Philistines hear this massive, earth-shaking uproar. At first, in verses 6 through 8, they are absolutely terrified. They realize the gods of the Hebrews have come into the camp, and they vividly remember that this is the same God who struck down the mighty Egyptians with all those plagues. So they start panicking, crying out, "Woe to us!" But then, in verse 9, something shifts. Their terror morphs into this desperate, back-against-the-wall resolve. Their leaders rally them with what has to be the ultimate motivational quote: "Be strong, Philistines, be men, or you will be subject to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight." They decide they're going to fight with absolutely everything they have.
Section 3. The Ark is captured. So the Israelites are way overly confident, right? While the Philistines are fighting with the absolute desperation of men facing complete extinction. Verses 10 and 11 detail the horrific, unthinkable outcome. The Philistines fight, and Israel is entirely defeated. It is a complete rout. The army disintegrates, and every surviving man flees to his own tent. The slaughter is just unfathomably great. While the first battle saw 4,000 dead, this second battle sees a staggering 30,000 Israelite foot soldiers killed. But the tragedy doesn't even end with the massive casualties. The ultimate disaster happens right there on the blood-soaked battlefield. The Ark of God is captured by the Philistines, and right beside it, Eli's two corrupt sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are killed.
Section 4. The Death of Eli.
With the battlefield completely decimated, the narrative violently shifts away from the front lines and travels back to the city of Shiloh. Verse 12 describes his frantic, desperate journey. A man from the tribe of Benjamin runs directly from the battle line. He covers that immense distance and arrives in Shiloh on that exact same day. And look at his appearance when he arrives. His clothes are torn, and he has dust on his head. In the ancient Near Eastern world, you wouldn't even need to hear this guy speak to know the outcome. These are the physical, unmistakable rites and signs of extreme mourning and catastrophic disaster. The moment this messenger enters Shiloh, the entire town erupts into a massive, horrified outcry. Verse 13 tells us exactly what the high priest is doing at that exact moment. Eli is sitting on his chair by the side of the road, just watching and waiting. The text specifically notes that his heart is trembling with fear, and this is crucial, actually. He isn't trembling for the safety of his two sons on the front lines. He is trembling with fear specifically for the Ark of God. So when he hears the sudden, chaotic uproar of the weeping town, he asks, what is the meaning of this uproar?
Now, to fully grasp the tragedy of this scene, we have to look at verses 14 and 15, which emphasize Eli's incredibly fragile physical state. He is 98 years old. His eyes are set, meaning he is completely blind. He literally cannot see the messenger's torn clothes. He can't see the dust on his head. Imagine the absolute terror of hearing a wailing crowd all around you, but being completely unable to see what's happening. He can only sit and wait in the dark as the messenger hurries over to deliver the horrific report.
The messenger delivers his devastating report to Eli in verse 17, and he structures it methodically in 4 escalating steps of tragedy. First, he says Israel fled before the Philistines. Second, the army has suffered heavy losses. Third, he makes it intensely personal. Your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead. And finally, he delivers the ultimate, unthinkable blow to the old priest. The Ark of God has been captured.
Verse 18 records the tragic climax. Eli hears the terrible news of his dead sons, but surprisingly, that is not what breaks him. The text specifically says that it is only when the messenger mentions the capture of the Ark of God that Eli falls backward off his chair by the side of the gate. Because he's an old man and heavy, his neck breaks and he dies instantly. With his sudden death, a monumental 40-year era of him leading and judging Israel comes to a tragic, abrupt end.
Section 5. Ichabod and Departed Glory.
Now, the chapter doesn't just end with Eli's death. It moves into a deeply personal, absolutely heartbreaking final scene. We turn our attention to Eli's daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas. Verses 19 through 21 tell us that she is pregnant and very near her time of delivery. When the horrific news reaches her, this unimaginable triple tragedy that the Ark is captured, her father-in-law is dead, and her husband is dead, the overwhelming shock actually induces sudden labor. She goes into labor and gives birth, but the pain and trauma are simply too much. She is overcome and lies dying. Even when the attending women try to comfort her by saying, "Hey, you've given birth to a son," she doesn't respond. She doesn't pay any attention to them at all.
With literally her dying breath, she names the newborn boy Ichabod. In Hebrew, this literally translates to no glory, or where is the glory? She explicitly states exactly why she is giving him this name. She says, the glory has departed from Israel. And she repeats it again in verse 22, to emphasize the true source of all this tragedy. It wasn't just the death of her husband or her father-in-law, it was because the Ark of God had been captured. The presence of God, the very glory of Israel, was gone.
Section 6. Key Ideas and Lessons.
So, having walked through this heavy, action-packed chapter step by step, what are the practical life lessons we can take away purely from the Peshat, the simple meaning of the text? First, the Israelites made a fatal error in assuming that physical proximity to the Ark equaled proximity to God. Holy objects are not magic charms. It makes you ask yourself, do you treat your faith as a magic guarantee to get what you want, or as a genuine relationship? Second, true deliverance requires true obedience. The elders should have examined their spiritual state. God demands morality, humility, and obedience, not just outward empty rituals. And finally, we see so vividly here that actions and corruption have unavoidable consequences. The tragic deaths of Eli's sons were the direct result of their prior corruption as priests, ultimately culminating in a total national disaster.
When the glory departs, how does a nation possibly rebuild from the ashes? Well, we'll see the fallout of this massive disaster very soon. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.